Go ahead and call this meeting to order. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Tisdale, seconded by Ms. Newman. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Mayor's report.
Yeah. I want to welcome everyone here today. I think we had a record crowd yesterday, and I'm sure that, welcome everyone again with taking their time out of their schedule to be here and go over, I think, some of the ideas that were surfaced yesterday. And I think we'll get into let Ann and Dick kind of, but there's a lot of things that we've heard about what it's going to take to get it, what we want to do, what the challenges are, and I'm anxious to go forward. And again, the comments from the people, the attendees, are what's important. I think we've got some in the summing up what we heard yesterday will be interesting and wind up these few hours with a plan. So that kind of concludes my report. And Ann, if you want to, okay.
All right. That's right. That's right. We'll get through some of these formalities, and then we'll open it up for the regular purpose of this meeting. Council reports, Mr. Tisdale, Mr. Deming, Mr. Gines, Mr. Barrett, Ms. Newman. Okay. The only thing I want to add is yesterday was very enlightening. It's very inspiring. I mean, a lot of thoughts going through everybody's heads as we have these types of meetings. I want to applaud the mayor for calling this workshop to discuss this, and certainly our experts. We appreciate you all being here again, and I think a lot of good is going to come out of this. We'll go ahead and move on to the public agenda, citizens' comments. Of course, we're going to get into our Q&A and a lot of what we did yesterday, but this part of the agenda allows up to 3 minutes. If anyone wants to speak on anything, they can have 3 minutes to speak individually. We have 45 minutes allotted for this part of the agenda. So if you do want to speak, raise your hand. You'll be recognized. You need to state your name and address clearly for the clerk to record, and then we'll move on. So with that being said, is there anyone that would like to speak on any subject matter at this time? Raise your hand. Yes, sir.
That's it. Give him the mic.
We'll give you a microphone right here. Just you can stand up and state your name and address.
My name is Leo Carney. My address is 2470 Deming Place, Biloxi, Mississippi.
Nice street.
Just some of the questions that I had was, with the majority of the historically black businesses that were in the Second Ward that have declined, what efforts are being made to spur economic stability in the African American community as far as the Second Ward is concerned? And one of the, I think I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and I have a list of things I want to discuss. There is a growing immigrant population in the Second Ward area, and some of the questions that some of the people I've talked to would like to know what incentives are being given to this population in order for them to be able to spur businesses in and throughout the Second Ward community. And I would like to know, is the historical black business district in downtown Biloxi considered a business improvement district? Business improvement district are areas that collect an elective tax from all property owners located within the business improvement district, and this tax is in turn used to fund programs and improvements within the district. And I think this would ideally improve revitalization efforts and overall economic conditions within that community. Mississippi does have enabling legislation for business improvement districts under Section 2143 1-83 of the Mississippi Code of 1972, and the proceeds from such business improvement districts are authorized towards the general promotion of retail activities in that area. Tax abatements as well are incentives that entice business development and commercial and retail alike in areas in and throughout the business improvement district. And another question, will Division Street and Main Street also see mixed-use development as well as abatements for affordable housing along the north side of the railroad tracks extending to Back Bay? ordinance number 2155. It was adopted in April of 2010 and establishes a district to utilize tax exemption under section 1721.52 of the Mississippi Code of 1972. And eligible districts include Back Bay, Cavet Street, Division Street, Porter Avenue, Judge Sequel, Oak Street, Point Cadet, and Wood Market. So those are just some of the questions that I wanted to bring forward to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay. This part of the agenda on the public agenda, citizens' comments, is closed. We'll move on to the policy agenda.
Subject matter of the meeting is to discuss the Biloxi Waterfront at Point Cadet and related areas.
Okay, that'll open it up to our experts to summarize some of your thoughts from yesterday and to kind of begin this segment today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, I would like to ask if there are many repeat customers from yesterday, which we're pleased with. If anybody has had an overnight sleep on it and woke up and have a brainstorm, this is your time. There's a brainstorm.
Vincent, test that mic. Test it.
Testing, 1, 2.
Kick it up.
Did I pass?
Kick it up.
Just help that if you're going to speak, just make sure you state your name and then go ahead
Andy
and proceed.
Ostelet. I did have time to think about this a little bit last night, and it took me back to when I redid Bellevue Park after Katrina, and what we did as a grassroots effort to get that park brought back after the storm had decimated it. And we sold benches. We sold gazebos. We went for that public-private, partnership that we needed to get that park back because people needed someplace to go. I went to the city and said, hey, who's doing Bellevue Park? And they were like, look, we're worried about infrastructure. We're not worried about a park right now. And I said, well, give it to me and I'll do it. And so it didn't take us long. It took us 7 months. And we had that park back up and running. And people were so grateful to have a place to go that was pretty, that didn't, their yard didn't have raw sewage running through it, or it was just a terrible thing. So I think that there are so many ways that this can start with a little small effort involving the community and then grow into something big. I know this group down here, they've got big ideas, that's where we need to get. But I can tell you, you can start with your community, you can start with just a few people and get it off the ground. And I think that that's real important. Selling benches, selling sections of sidewalks, selling, gazebos, just getting something there to create the excitement for the city. I think that's real important to do. And I loved Fofo's I Am Biloxi when he did that when he was running for mayor. I am Biloxi, but you could say we are the point and move forward with a campaign like that.
Okay.
I'm Tina Ross Siemens. I live at 2325 Arbor Drive in Biloxi. Next week, and I don't know if the mayor knows about this, but we have put together a subcommittee of our Economic Development Committee for the Biloxi Bay Area Chamber to look at the downtown area under the overpass, strictly for, or primarily for, the farmers market, community market. And a group of us, City, Main Street, our Economic Development, our Beautification Development Committee, are going to actually meet there, look at the area, come up with ideas, have a vision, plan, and do. If we could get certain groups within this group to concentrate on pocket areas in the East Biloxi area, on the point, and look at what we have, go on a field trip, touch it, feel it, smell it, and then come back to the table and say, okay, here's our plan, this is our vision, how can we do it, and let's do it. Don't spend a lot of time talking about it, 7 months, a 5-week project. We have the talent here to get it done. We just need to come together and do it and make it a better place for us, residents, our future, and our tourists. Thank you.
Tina, let me jump in and kind of tell you what we've already done. And we've been some studies and some, at least some rulings of moving the community market towards Howard Avenue and parking, so people know that, you know, way off of, you know, mid-block right now, you don't know really what's going on. So there is some design, and is Christy here? I don't know, our engineer? She's at a conference. But anyway, there has been some, you know, preliminary stuff to move that whole operation with some things that are centered around the pilings and support beams that make it a market, and it's obvious that it is a market. So that's in the process right now, and we welcome further stuff. But that's on the drawing board right now, and I think it is a capital project that you know, will be considered in this next cycle. But then, you know, specifically, you know, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? Those, I guess, ability to put booths, you know, that it's obvious to everyone that this is a market of some sort, and so that's happening now.
Might also mention, Tina, the downtown restoration plan that the mayor did a year ago speaks to the very point you're talking about, and also to ask the community to come back and suggest things. So you're right on target there. But take a look at that, because there's $50,000 allocated towards doing what the mayor has talked about.
Good morning. My name is Christy Pickering. I live at 3505 Brandon James Drive in Biloxi. I will say this, it's one of the, I think maybe the only place in Biloxi that ever asked to be annexed by the city of Biloxi. So we are proud to be here. I have been included in some of these meetings about the Point Cadet. It is raw land, beautiful raw land that we need to do something with. I'm not a realtor, but I am a CPA, and I know the economics of raw land versus land that can produce revenue. I think it's a win-win for all the parties involved. So I just want y'all to consider the possibilities going forward.
Anyone else?
No other overnight brainstorms. Let me reiterate the comments of the first lady who spoke, namely the importance of small steps, doable steps, 7-week projects. That makes eminent sense to us, and you've got a lot of territory, in fact, maybe too much, to work with. So, now what? Yeah, maybe our primary recommendation for you is a structural one, if you will, and that is that you have someone in the city government, doesn't matter where, who is in charge of thinking about the waterfront 24/7. That is, every working day, that person gets up thinking about the waterfront and nothing but the waterfront. There's a ton of territory here, so that would be a full-time job. It can be an existing staff member, preferably full-time, but if not, at least start out half-time or part-time. We've mentioned this to Mayor, and he seems receptive without committing him to this initiative. But this is real important in our way of thinking. And we have a precedent, or 8, but yeah, where this has been done successfully. One comes to mind is in St. Paul, where a person in planning was in charge of the waterfront, and he did literally wake up every day thinking about it, and one of his tactics was every month he got a story in the newspaper about the waterfront. And that brought it to people's consciousness because the riverfront in St. Paul was neglected. And that was a catalyst. And things went on from there. We did a workshop out there, and a very successful one that produced immediately a $10,000 contribution from a bank. So things evolve, but that would be our prime recommendation. It's not a physical one, but a structural one.
And maybe the leadership would change over time. I mean, in various cities, it'll start out maybe in the city, and then maybe they set up a conservancy or a development corporation or something like that, because these things are very long-term. But we just want to reiterate, if somebody isn't focused and thinking about it and looking for all the opportunities, because waterfronts are very complex, and you have to be looking around for every kind of opportunity. So this focus, it's focus. Oh, am I supposed to focus? Again, I think this has been brought up already this morning, that lots of small temporary things can happen almost right away. I mean, you could probably there might be some vendors around town that have push carts that could go down somewhere with their hot dogs or their water bottles or whatever and set up shop. If there's, I don't know what your permitting structure is like, but you look at those, I think there must be 25 pages of notes back there. Poor Gerald, his hand's probably sore. But the whole thing of carts, food trucks, the pop-ups like I showed yesterday, I mean, that little beer garden, that took 5 weeks. So if somebody gets behind something like that and they find a location for a pop-up, it doesn't have to be on a pier, or it doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but it's just cleverness. It's clever, and you know, you can do a lot with lights and flags and all that kind of thing, and people love it and the informality of it. But we really recommend doing small temporary things and brainstorming a lot of the things that were done yesterday.
Let me add, and also, Gerald, back up a little bit and kind of point out what is we're very close to. We went through a bid process to develop a true infrastructure of that waterfront, and that's Buzzy D&E. We're going to go. We bid the project already, so the reconstruction of that. The bulkheads that were crumbling, and we're going to build that boardwalk through, the port bond and with the county's help there. It's about a 1.8 million. That's going to happen. So we'll have a structure where these things that you talk about can be implemented. So tactically, the big part, and you've seen some of the things that are there now, but that's going to change very rapidly. And in this next cycle, this next budget cycle, we're going to, go forward with the reconstruction of the crumbling infrastructure, and we'll have a true boardwalk. Now, what do we do? What happens is what I think we're talking about now.
But you want to, I think the feeling of people being able to get down to the water, will that walkway have spots where that'll be possible, or little steps or little rocks or something?
Buzz, you might want to add about what we're doing to the, especially north of the bridge with parking and lighting and access. So if you want to point out that, Buzz.
The project that Fofo just mentioned is area we call D and E. D being the area starting here and going around to the bridge. E is picking up on the other side of the existing plaza design and bringing you around and tying you back into the sidewalk system at the palace and redoing this parking lot. E will have water access because the boardwalk will be down where when you just step off of it, you're stepping into sand and then you can walk to the water's edge. C is a little more, D is a little more of a problem because it's an existing bulkhead in there that is 4 feet above sea level. So, you can go down and fish off of it and stuff would actually touch the water. You can't even jump off of it because the water's only 2 to 3 feet deep. You'll kill yourself. But it will be a complete boardwalk. It will have some areas. It will have covers on it with where you could picnic and things. It does have some overlooks where people can go out and fish off of them out over the water. So we're trying to get the pedestrian use, but we have a lot of other things planned down here with amphitheaters and such as that may come true. But the big picture that they're working on in this area, we don't want to do too much because it may have to change, and there's no point in putting a lot of money into it and then turn around and taking some of it out and doing it in another way. So this big major development for all of this is kind of in everybody's back of their mind. So we're making this nice and easy and simple. It'll tie into anything.
Thank you, Buzzy. The point is, I mean, that area needs attention, and through this project, and again, has been bid. You know, there's some crumbling of bulkheads and the stability of that waterfront. We're trying to correct that. Now, you know, we've built it. What do we need to put on top of it, around it, have access to it? So.
That area has never been repaired since Katrina. When you say it's crumbling, it basically was torn up and has never been rebuilt.
Well, as close to a unanimous recommendation out of yesterday's discussion, I think, was that the marina be restored, repaired, upgraded, yeah. 20 million, I think, was something like that. Yeah. The Billfish tournament organizer spoke about how successful the Billfish tournament is in spite of the condition of the marina. And he had with him a letter that he received from a happy Billfish tournament participant who spoke to the need in specifics about the upgrade. And I'm sorry I lost track of that, but it was very pointed. So that was a close to a consensus item. Nobody disagreed. And all you have to do is fund it and get an engineer, and away you go.
And it wouldn't be just for the billfish. I think it would attract boats from all over. And in addition to that, it would make the area, not just the water area, but the upland area could be improved and made more beautiful and more environmentally sustainable. And you could even do beautiful parking lot instead of parking lot.
Right.
And maybe improve the back of the Nugget, is it?
Yeah, well, right where you see some of the parking area right now, Buzz, we're talking in reconfiguring the harbor and having the ability to put all of our charter boats in one spot instead of half at Small Craft Harbor here, and a natural landing area, amphitheater. You know, not a Roman Coliseum kind of deal, but where we can see these whaling activities and those kinds of things will be part of this $20 million, but it will be to the edge of the harbor. So a reconfiguration, floating docks, wider docks, more current, because these boats draw more power than the old days, and but it'd be closer to the edge. So what we're doing right by the parking lot or behind the Golden Nugget will be located a little bit to the east. So, but that $20 million will get us that, a surface, an area with some amphitheater-like capability. So with that $20 million, I think we can accomplish immediately the billfish improvements that we need and make it, a lot of people don't fish, but I'd like to see them bring these big fish in.
Well, there could be other tournaments as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Amazing, and then the whole luxury yacht market.
May I add, I think, and Bobby and the Bellingham man is here, one of the key points, though, at least I think the consensus was floating docks rather than restoring stable piers. So, I just want to get that on the record, and in case anybody disagrees, because I think that's what was really recommended is the Bellingham version of the floating docks there, to replace what you have the capacity for much larger slips for larger boats.
You know, we talked a little bit about it in our conversations earlier. We did a little dredging next to the Margaritaville site, and in that little area where Betsy Ann and them run, and that's to about 5 feet, I think, isn't it? Now, the rest of the harbor has been done, after Katrina, but it needs to be revisited. So we'll do a more consistent bottom for this project too. So the whole area needs to be dredged, so these big boats, without having to turn up a lot of mud, when they either come in or run their generators even. So that's all part of that 20, but we'll get it deep enough and wide enough and convenient enough for these boats to come, even bigger boats. A number of yacht brokers have indicated that they would put some of these 100-foot boats if they had the capacity to store them as they sell them. Right now, most of those brokers are in the Destin, Pensacola area, but we've indicated that would be another component of our harbor or the area what we're talking about.
Okay. Another, we've been trying to listen yesterday, and one of the other points of consensus we think was that the need for a convention conference center within 1 mile of the East Biloxi hotels. And this is, of course, is a longer term project, but there did seem to be consensus about that. And we would just say, when you go forward with that, do bear in mind that you have a waterfront. Yeah. I mean, there's towns, they build these things, and they put a blank wall and they paint a whale on the back and open up to the water. So when you do get to that point, get a good designer to make sure that it takes advantage of the beautiful water and everything out there, because it can be disastrous.
That's the opportunity for it.
Yeah, it can be disastrous. We had that happen in our own hometown of Cape May, and I kicked up a fuss, and the architect finally said, oh, maybe we do have water.
Yeah. The design of the conference center, so-called, in Cape May, initially had a blank wall facing the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, come on. So Ann did kick up a fuss and got a glass wall instead. Weekly events. Frequent festivals. In front of the Seafood Museum is a great space there. Green space at Point Cadet. A great lawn area to the west, all connected by boardwalks. Weekly events is relatively easy to do. You got space, and this is a fun-loving town, so I would be surprised if such events wouldn't succeed. I mean, you already have a number of events, and we just say more. More is better. Anything else?
Yeah, we heard a couple things which were kind of fun. The two gentlemen from the museum talked about, they used to have a lot of cat boats, I think, that would go out, and maybe you could build some cat boats and as a demonstration in front of the museum. And then they were saying it'd be great if people could rent the cat boats and just have more boating altogether. And you could do a lot with I don't know what the indigenous kinds of boats are around here other than the big schooner. And first time I saw a cat boat, I never saw one except in the restaurant yesterday. So, but I'm sure with all the, the kayaking and canoe, whatever, but the idea of a demonstration, and you could do other kinds of demonstrations. Temporary art exhibits, you could reach out to the art community, and I know my friend in Detroit, when they had their park, they started putting in calls to artists, and they would have like a summer-long outdoor exhibit, and the artists get to show off their work, and people come and look at the art. And I showed you that crazy junk sculpture thing in Seoul. I mean, that just attracted tons of people. But and then food, all kinds of food stuff, and you have multicultural community, so all those different types of food. Like when we go to French Quarter Festival, you get Best of the Fest, and so all the restaurants have their little booths, and for $5 you can get a little cardboard thing full of
Right.
stuff. And then dancing and all kinds of stuff can happen. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And yoga,
Activity.
Yoga,
Activity.
Tai Chi, all that stuff. So, I mean, it's your imagination. The world is your oyster, so to speak, oyster shucking.
We see the opportunity for a lot of short-term projects, events, smaller, and we may be repeating ourselves, smaller fishing pier substructure. What's that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But short-term projects, such as the young lady led off the meeting talking about, it animates the waterfront, and that's what you want to see more of, and you almost can't have enough, and a variety of activities and events and occasions, celebratory occasions and so forth.
One part about the fishing is we did that cute little photograph there, which went up with the mayor. But fishing piers don't just have to be the parallel fishing pier. You've got bait tackle shops. You've got the coffee shop. Outdoor cafes. There's a lot of ancillary things that can be leased. Space can be leased so that people.
Right, and that goes along, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but we mentioned it, and that's where as a government here, we have to justify almost everything. These things are nice. We've seen activities that, like we had a few weeks ago, over 150,000 see a performance of the Blue Angels. And that whole waterfront, they had the whole beach was covered with tents, and it was an unbelievable event over 2 days. Even some of the gas stations ran out of gas because there were so many visitors. Our challenge is these are nice. How do we translate that into dollars to justify the investment we're going to have? That's just what we have to do. So the metrics, if you're talking about 5 trucks and they sell $10,000 worth of product. Okay, so there's some metrics that we can say, okay, that's what's coming back. Of the 7% we send to the state, they give us 18.5% of that dollar. So that's all the components we need. The help to say, this is performance. This happens. When you're at this festival, this is what you can expect the sales tax or any other kinds of things, so that we know it works in these other places. Why does it work? Why is it worth the investment? I think that's what we're trying to do as a community, say this does make sense. This performs if we do this. But that, the first day we had about over 5,000 people on Saturday, just on the waterfront, and a great line. It was still a really great line. Watch this 2-hour, 3-hour kind of performance, and it could be 20 or 30 minutes of something. But those kinds of crowds, not so much hundreds of thousands, but 10,000 is a good number. And how does that justify? How does that turn into revenue to offset the cost that we're probably going to put in there? That's our challenge, I think.
Yeah, well, you need the big, and you need the small.
That's right.
And I think, again, I just had a thought about the fishing opportunities. If you do have the bait and tackle and the snack bars and all that, that helps brings a little security to the fishing areas. And if the cleaning stations, you have however long the guy's selling the bait and tackle and the snacks, or has a little coffee shop, that puts eyes onto the pier. And maybe they have a nice, restrooms built into that. That's more down the line, but as you can get revenue. It might not be huge, but it has the other thing of the eyes and the safety, because you have to consider safety on a waterfront too. If things get too isolated, people don't want to go down.
Yeah.
I wanted to, just an observation, or our bias is we love the cultural and natural heritage issues. And the natural heritage can get lost, I think, sometimes. And that's so important with that island that you have, and I think you've got wetland areas in the city, and there's a lot of people that like to come and bird watch and discover the, what's in the wetlands and, all the little critters, and give them an opportunity to walk quietly through all these places and appreciate the natural beauty. It gets overlooked a lot, I think, in today's world, and I think we need that kind of, the cities, the term is called an urban wild, and a lot of people are very protective of their urban wilds, and I think you should think about that as part of your package, because everybody doesn't want to come to a casino. A lot of people want to come to a sweet little town that's got a nice architectural heritage, it's got natural beauty, a beach, and great food. And that's another niche, I think, that you may have, that people might come in the off seasons, a little older, maybe, and sit in the rocker and enjoy the sort of calm, small town atmosphere.
Right. And it is, we're a different kind of town. We talked a little bit about what the opportunity that the hotel space for the big conference, is that part of the justification of a convention center down here. So it is part of the package. So you can do anything and everything while you're here. But that's all, part of what we're trying to polish up. So, it's sort of a unique, Biloxi is a unique thing, and I think as we go through, we'll hammer out what's good for Biloxi. I do want to thank Michael Watson. Senator Michael Watson is here. Michael, welcome. We thank Scott Brown and Hank yesterday. We're hammering out some ideas, and of course the legislature has to be able to understand what our thoughts are. But we had a sold out crowd yesterday night, and we're hammering out some more thoughts with what we could do with this resource we have. So welcome. If you care to say anything, just stop. Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah. Okay.
Ann mentioned birding, and if you have birds here, you might. If you can become an attraction to birders, this is a huge business. People invest a lot of money in birding equipment, and they're a dedicated lot. And I hope you are able to attract them. They're another, niche, and they will spend a lot of money.
How many people have seen an oyster fish? Okay, we have a lot, especially right there. But it's a unique fish. So whether you see it, almost like how many have seen a whale? I hadn't seen a whale, but they're there, and that's you see no, exactly.
You don't know what an oyster fish is? How many people have cursed when they've hooked one of those things? They can't get them off their hook. So, I'd like to say a few things also. One of the comments that were made yesterday, I think the gentleman's here, but you made the comment yesterday about how some communities wait for, I think you said, what was the name of the company? Bass Pro, waiting for Bass Pro to come and save us. And your comment was they didn't wait. They started doing stuff and started building their community, and what our identity, what our image is, what we want people, the experience that we want people to feel that's genuine. And I think that's the point we're at today. I hear you about, being a little town and everything, but I've always said be bold, be big, think big, be big. And I think we need to grasp this opportunity with funding sources that we've never, ever had before, with our support from our legislators that is as strong as ever, and with these innovative ideas that are circulating, that we can create a safe, clean, compelling experience for our visitors and for our citizens that use our waterfront community. It is a huge bonus to be a waterfront community. All the cities, Mobile, Pensacola, all of them are taking advantage of that, and we need to take advantage of who we are. It's a great resource that we have. We scratch our heads sometimes to figure out why aren't we as successful as some of these other places, And hey, I'm not worried about that. We need to start doing. And everything else will take care of itself if we start doing stuff. So thank you for those comments yesterday. Over to you.
Well, we went through our punch list here, but marketing was another thing that came up yesterday, that there was a sort of lack of marketing, I think I got that. Funding for marketing. Well, you know, I forget, I was racking my brain, I read, I'll have to think about this on our way home, but some clever city identified a person who was very good at placing articles and magazine pieces and all that free, you know, because magazines and those kinds of things have to fill up their publications. So like this oyster person, or your food, or your, all the different things that you have going on. You know, if you can get somebody to write articles or get somebody interested like Audubon or the Nature Conservancy or Food and Wine or you name it, all kinds of boating magazines. I mean, there's so many different niche magazines that if somebody were to approach them or cultivate them, you might get a number, you know, free stuff that then now a lot of them are national. You know, you're not talking just a state, some of them are very national, so they read about, I can go to Biloxi and I can get all this or that or the other thing.
I see a few people in the audience that have had, direct experience with this. Chet, Tina, but I'd like to ask Linda Hornsby, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but kind of just talk to where we are at as far as our marketing and our marketing dollars compared to our competing states and who we compete with for those visitors. Talk, if you don't mind talking about that just a little bit.
Actually, the marketing, our largest marketing, our largest marketing dollars are spent by the Mississippi Gulf Coast Convention, Mississippi Gulf Coast Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau. Visit Mississippi Gulf Coast is their marketing brand, and we pay for it with room taxes throughout the coast. Total 5% in Harrison County, 2 2/4 of which goes to the CVB, 2 3/4 goes to the county to pay for the existing debt of the Coliseum and Convention Center expansion. That's where our marketing is done, and they are marketing the entire Mississippi Gulf Coast.
For how much? How much is their budget?
The marketing budget is about $2 million out of the total of $7 million that's generated.
And how does that compare?
Oh gosh, it doesn't even compare. I mean, it's pennies. It's pennies. The free articles, we do get a lot of free articles in travel and leisure magazines, things like that. Conventions need to be our bread and butter. That's where so much of the potential is. And I sit on the board of the convention center. And we just need room night conventions, not gun and knife shows. And so there's a connectivity there that the hotels are in one place and the convention center is in another place. And that's been the case even before Katrina. So, but as far as marketing, yeah, I mean, we're competing with places like, Orange Beach, Panama City, Destin, of course, the entire state of Florida. They really pull a lot of our people, especially after Katrina. And once you lose those people, it's tough to get them back. You have to spend more money to get them back, to think of you again. So is that about what you were looking at?
Not to disagree with Linda, that she's correct in everything she said, but I think the important point is nobody's really focused on Biloxi per se, and the little things and the big things in Biloxi. I mean, I look at all those ads and stuff, and it's the whole Mississippi Gulf Coast, which is wonderful, but many times I see those ads and the word Biloxi's not even in there. So if you're a tourist in Massachusetts and you're Googling Biloxi, you may or may, or you go to that website, you may or may not talk about the festival this weekend in Biloxi, which we have the Seafood Festival this weekend, and of course Tina and the others promote that. So I think that seems to me the point that's being made here is not to, there's nothing wrong with what's happening, but it's not even close to what we need in terms of our community expressing our own unique opportunities and frequently day to day. And that goes back to you waking up, somebody waking up every day with nothing else to do except promoting Biloxi, waterfront, and so forth.
You're absolutely right there. That was the point I was trying to make by saying they are marketing the Mississippi Gulf Coast from one state line to the other 3 counties. Biloxi is a brand of all of the city, and I'm not saying that because I'm from Biloxi. I'm saying that if I were building a hotel in Wiggins, I can tell you I'd find a way to put Biloxi in the name. And that's how strong of a brand Biloxi has and needs to be utilized.
Let me say, in addition to what Linda's saying, we have 8 casino resorts. They have their own marketing. You know, they have with their own intent. So they know how to get to the people that they profiles they want. So there's an addition to what the Mississippi is doing, but they need to work together. Let's kick back and, you know, what is a mid-size as far as room nights? And, you know, the goal that I like to do is a metric. You know, 800 room nights is a medium-sized convention, you think? Yeah. Okay. So we have 4,000 conventions. So huh? Yeah, citywide. What I'm talking about, you know, that's the jump we're going to have. And if this new site or a site in the area is doable, because now you don't, you know, you have within stone's throw the ability to stay at sites that, you know, the whole thing coupled with the casino, sports betting is another thing that just has been implemented. Really, it impacts. So we just heard the other day, the first few weeks of operation was 9 million to the ball game. So we're experiencing something nobody else has experienced. And nobody will experience. So we got to have the whole package ready to go. Waterfront's a big part of it. You know, go bet football and go take a stroll down the road, catch an oyster fish. So, I mean, that's something, a unique set of things that we got to deal with, and we will deal with it. You know, again, we have an exciting brand and an exciting opportunity. So there are a lot of things. We can do everything better. And, you know, let's focus on doing it better and get that 800 room nights to, you know, a couple of 1,000 all the time. And that brings everybody. And you can measure those dollars that come back to offset those improvements you're trying to do.
Midweek also.
Midweek, especially. I was in December at the IP. I met with the Southeastern Tourism Society, and these are folks that deal with conventions and so forth. They told me, said, I can't believe I got a $79 midweek room night. So we was, you know, we came here because Charleston was $149 during the midweek in December. And yet it's $79 rents. Those are the things that are possible due to the casino, you know, facilities. And midweek, everybody's full. You heard Chet say, we're full on the weekends, and no problem. They get their numbers. Everybody has those numbers. Midweek is the inventory because it costs them about $60 a night that nobody's in there. So there's a reason for those kinds of efforts and those kinds of facilities that will enhance everybody.
And Mayor, they'll pay that $140, they'll pay $240, they'll pay $340 if we provide the experience.
That's right.
For them. So,
Mr. President, all this really argues for, I don't think it's working again. Can you hear me? I mean, the convention center in East Biloxi seems to be the key to be able to get the 4,000 room night type conventions. How do you pay for that? It's got to be on the table. Won't decide it today, but there's lots of opportunities. And the key, you know, the notion of a business district from the lighthouse around to the palace, that's where the big hotels are. That's one way to do it voluntarily. If the casino hotels and the other hotels would, and Margaritaville, not just the casino hotels, would adopt some form of business district self-tax, voluntary tax. You don't need a law to do that. There's already a business district law in existence, as this young man pointed out. And you need them all over town, too, you're right. But so I'm getting that on the table. And then the opportunity would be if you've got some local money that you can match, go and ask for the state, I mean, I'm delighted that Senator Watson is here, and I hope whatever comes of this conference will also be reported to all the legislators. But we've got to have private investment skin in the game
Sure.
in order to go for these programs, and like the BP economic damages money. But I think, as Anna said, that there seems to be a consensus on two big things. Consensus on a lot of the little things too, but the two big things are the convention center and upgrading the marina so that you can really be world-class marina for the billfish. And those two go together, because then you got conventions for, billfish folks too. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, I think that the ways and means to get the money to build it really has to have the cooperation of the private business community and investors.
Let me jump in. We mentioned about Las Vegas and some of these other folks that seem to do well. There's 34 casinos in Las Vegas, okay? They have a huge, and I used to go for Comdex, which was a computer conference, at the Las Vegas Convention Center. It's way off the strip. Several years ago, 10 years ago, the Sands built their own convention center. Now that's the primary spot. It was built privately, okay, on the strip. And look at the success. It's booked almost more than the Las Vegas Convention Center. Right now, those 34 casino operations, I think it's 48, almost 49% is gaming now. Everything else is shopping and those kinds of conference and convention things. So that's a significant shift. And we've got 8 casinos. And so our challenges are to figure out, take what other folks have learned, and let's put it into play.
There's a blueprint. It's right here before us.
Yeah.
There is a blueprint for some of these things. And I mentioned yesterday a tourism tax on restaurants. I think that the tourists pay primarily. I think that's a way of increasing our marketing funds to be able to compete with our surrounding cities. So Linda, you want to just talk about that 1 second too?
Well, the money that built and paid for the Coliseum, the original building, the Coliseum and Convention Center, was paid for with it was a 2% room, food, and beverage tax. Paid off a 20-year bond issue in 17 years. Then we extended it to create a trust fund. That was achieved in less than 2 years, and then we transferred just the room part of it, the food and beverage backed out, but we transferred the 2% room tax to the Convention and Visitors Bureau at that time, which already had a 1% room tax. But my point is, because of food and beverage being involved, it paid it off so much faster than if it would have been a room tax alone. And those are low ticket items. A room, you notice a room tax on your room. You don't notice it on a $10 food ticket or a $20 food ticket. You really don't.
You're right on target. Let's keep in mind that there was a referendum. The people of Biloxi and Harrison County voted for it, and that original one many years ago. And virtually any new tax like that, I think, even if it's local and private, requires a referendum. The senator shaking his head. That's okay, because I think to be bold, this community seems to be ready to endorse that concept. So let's try it out.
It would generate a lot of money.
Let me read from the
B News.
B News. 2 high-profile waterfront projects, Pops Ferry Causeway Park and the West Biloxi Boardwalk, are opening to the public. And the reason I want to mention these, especially Pops Ferry Causeway Park project, its planning goes back to the mid-'80s, and that's a cautionary reality that big undertakings or medium-sized undertakings are long-term, and while we've emphasized short-term here and now and events that can pop up, the reality is that major undertakings are long-term, and so you know that instinctively, but you've got to gear yourself for that reality.
I'm just going to sort of homespun. I want to get back to the kids. I mean, all these things are fabulous, and they're bringing all kinds of money into the town. But I keep wanting to reiterate that you are a community. You have families here. You have to have wonderful things for families to do. And I showed a lot of stuff for kids yesterday. And I think the parents will come and enjoy, and you don't have to be really expensive. You don't have to have the latest wing bang with all the, everything. It can be a simple, fun thing. Kids just like to play with dirt and water. We gave an award to a project, I think it was somewhere in California, where they had taken cobblestones and they made a cobblestone beach, just cobblestones. And kids were just playing with these cobblestones. They were building little things, not big money. And our jury thought this was just so clever that, something that simple, and the kids were, and adults too, were getting into this cobblestone park and just playing. So I just really want to remind you not to lose sight of the kids and the families, because they're a big part of your community, and little things like that can bring so much joy. Water, kids love to play water and sand and dirt. So it's just me. I guess I'm a mom, so I just want to keep that in your forefront of your thinking. Oh, I did that already. Well, we want to just continue to caution you about environmental sensitivity and sustainability. I mean, that's a really hot thing now. Green roofs, green things that cascade. I mean, like a parking garage would be expensive, but with big green things. You go through Landscape Architecture magazine now, and there's all sorts of green stuff all around hanging. And the rooftops, these green roofs are amazing. They absorb the water. And I don't know what your water situation is here in Biloxi, but everybody's trying to retain the rain and not have to treat water that is being run off. So keep that whole environmental issue in your mind a lot, because a lot of people don't see it, but it can be very beautiful. And your parking lots can have rain retention, and they can be permeable paving. They can be beautiful and not just big, flat macadam things. I think I had another life. I think I would try to. You fly over this country and you just see this shopping center with this enormous stuff of macadam, and that's not good for the environment.
Fortunately, they're dying.
Dick, on an environmental note, some of this was talked about yesterday, particularly Buddy Jumonville and some of the Seafood Museum people, but speaking of environmental sustainability, sailing and sailboats as opposed to motorboats with combustion engines is a lot of fun and exciting, and also much more environmentally friendly. And as we were growing up, George and the rest of us remember that was a commonplace thing in Biloxi. Up until Camille, you had lots of small sailboats. You didn't have to be a rich yacht owner to get on a boat or go sailing or sail at Ship Island or Deer Island or any sailing up and down. So, and this was mentioned a little bit before about maybe some tourism sailing sites, but just engaging, what Buddy Jumonville was talking about is if you had a small craft pier, even right there by the Seafood Museum, a catboat is a shallow draft. You can come in pretty shallow water there, and getting kids interested again. St. Patrick's High School does have a sailing team, so if you had more of this kind of happy stuff in the community, it becomes a place where you see sailboats all up and down the harbor. I mean, when we were growing up, Kim, if you'd walk to the beach, and I'm not talking about the 40s, although it was really big in the 40s, I guarantee you, but I'm talking about up into the 60s, every day you would see sailboats out there from local people, and it was a beautiful thing to behold. And I never owned a sailboat in my life. We didn't have the money to do it, but I was easy. You could get on them all over the place, So the point is that when we're thinking about environmental sensitivity, let's also think about this wonderful heritage we have, which is the oak trees, for instance. Preserving these things that make us unique, and reviving some of the things that we've semi-lost. I mean, you still have 2 or 3 catboats out there, but there used to be 200 or 300.
Yeah, oak trees are, maybe you take them for granted, but they are very striking to us. Beautiful, big, and they want to be protected. You touched on something, I think, Mayor Plessy, and that is Deer Island. That is a real gem, and it's proximate. And it would be easy to arrange a ferry or a means of transportation, relatively easy, to get to and from. We pray that you won't allow it to be developed or civilized with lights and outhouses and the like. Leave it natural would be our recommendation, and for it to be enjoyed for its natural beauty. It's right at your doorstep. That's been one of our biggest impressions, I would say, is from our visit here 30 years ago. We didn't realize a lot of things, including Deer Island. A cheer for Deer Island as a natural place.
Is there any other closing thoughts? Anybody else have anything they want to say before we move on to the last part of the agenda today?
Let me jump to Andy, what I saw in Croatia. Okay, it like a water. They have 1,000 islands right there. You know, I was amazed. Every community had a number of little boats with these small 5-10 horsepower motors on it. And you want to go to water and you go visit the Blue Cove or whatever. You know, a little boat. I mean, it's not more. But every one of them had, hey, you can give me 1,000 coal and it's your boat for the day, and which is 6.3 to 1 in case you want. But I'm saying, everybody get on the water, when we're on the water, and of course the cat boats and those sailings are adventures. But I mean, that would be a natural way to get to do around. Well, then walk the beach, see some of the things that wash up or some of the things that live. We're agreeing with you about the naturalness of Deer Island. But that be, again, an opportunity to visit by engaging in some commerce. But every little, you probably saw it in Zara, and some of those other places, every one of them, go get your little boat, and it's not more difficult to, I could handle a 5 horsepower motor than a solar easily. So, anyway.
Kenny, just one other, to allude back to yesterday, I thought one of the most powerful statements Jeff Ellis was talking about, another whole set of partners that we haven't talked much today about, and that's the educational partners, particularly the institutions of higher learning. Southern, as we all know, once had a marine education center on this site. After a lot of discussion, for better or for worse, they went to Ocean Springs with the insurance money and the FEMA money, and have gone to Gulfport with another research, and those are wonderful institutions. But they still have a research presence at Point Cadet, which is very important. And the DMR has connected up with Southern and the Aquaculture Consortium, which Jeff Ellis mentioned, which is Mississippi State, Alcorn, and Southern, and Ole Miss, all have these scientists working on aquaculture, blue crab aquaculture at Alcorn, oyster aquaculture at Southern, and shrimp aquaculture at Southern and at State. And so somehow or another to really rekindle the interest of the educational side, not just at the the graduate level, but people walking around and looking at things and experiencing those kinds of things becomes part of the whole attraction equation. Even just like the West Biloxi Boardwalk, they're getting ready to put in the signs. I'm not sure if they're up to date, but they're interpretive signs that DMR and others, Page and others, help write with our engineering department, which talks about what's out there in the water and what's the birds and Ship Island and all that. So all of this is part of the equation, but we have somehow, the USM as a partner has not had much presence. We've invited them to these meetings and so forth, the mayor has. We'd really like to rekindle that and see how, the University of Southern Mississippi takes $500,000 a year in rent from the Golden Nugget rent that's shared with the state and the city, and that's wonderful. But, you know, I'd like to see it on the table that when we're talking about mixed use and all of the entertainment things, including the little kiosks, that these institutions of higher learning be appealed to and be partners again with us. Now, on the secondary elementary level, the Seafood Museum does a sea and sail camp every year. I understand that they've had 10,000 kids go through the sea and sail camp at the museum. They go on the schooner, they have a little kids fishing kind of rodeo thing. So Anna's talking about and kids, well, obviously that 10,000 didn't just come from Biloxi, they came from all over. I think Kim is shaking her head that the field trips have come from all over. So if you have the places to go to, am I right, Kim? It's not just Biloxi kids going to the sea and sail camp. So here's something else that's small scale, doesn't cost a lot, and connect up with. But imagine if they could come and it also have, you know, demonstrations of oyster aquaculture and things like that. So I'm just getting that on the table.
Great points. Sir, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to, great brainstorming. You said all the comments here, so maybe. But one thing that I want to bring up, maybe a little bit negative, and that's the sense of, we do all this building, and yet we may not be thinking about, you know, the coast is a great place to live. You know, the boat can go anywhere else, practically on the coast. I mean, practically in the neighborhood. But when the weather is good, the weather is great. When the weather is bad, the weather is really, really bad. And I saw something in Gulfport that I thought would be a good point of view to look at, and that is in Gulfport, on Dido Road. There are arch rivals, I know, kidding. In high school they were too, but it made us better. But they have on Dido Road, if you look at that bridging, that metal bridging that they have there, it is an ideal way to prevent a lot of damage that we seem to absorb when a storm comes. I mean, they're going to come. That's just no question about it. And what we could do is put up barriers, because we're thinking about that on the east side. We're trying to anyway. And that is because we're almost an island stuck out into the water, and you're a target, you know, for any storm. So the point is similar, same thing, situation. And if we're thinking about preserving all of this development in a long run, we might want to think about how we can avoid so much damage. You know, 10 feet of wave lost from coming in can make a big difference in how much is preserved. That's great brainstorming though. Really think you're thinking really well for the citizens of Mississippi.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd like to move on to the last part of the agenda today, and that's to discuss the potential for a national waterfront conference. Y'all want to speak to that?
Gerald.
All right. Mr. Blessy, you want to speak to potential of a conference with 2,000 delegates?
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Again, these ideas, and we'll have some blueprints, and then, you know, again, we're going through this exercise and asking for ideas and interest, P's and Q's and everything else on, hey, this is a potential, this is a resource we have for development, and what would you do if it were yours, and what would it take for you to put significant emphasis into this area of the waterfront in general, in Biloxi in general. But our thought was, you know, we've hammered out some ideas, we got a direction. Now, send the word out, and we will gather, and you will be part, if from a private investment, private enterprise, coupling this opportunity zone that we happen to be in, as well as the other things that, you know, if you build whatever you think you can build, we would identify what is doable and what return on investment if you do build these things in Biloxi. But yeah, we were shooting latter part of this year.
Right, maybe, you know, late November or even after the first of the year, but with help from our consultants. And I mean, it will take a lot more thought and discussion with the council about doing that, but the notion would be this, I mean, we are a nationwide brand, as Linda said. People know about Biloxi, but do they really know about Biloxi's waterfront opportunities for investment? And one way, the mayor was thinking one way to just get more attention would be to do a half-day or one-day conference that would attract national speakers and national investors, we hope. Just one way of getting a lot of PR attention and free media attention, too, to so many of the ideas that we have here today, and crystallize them more, boil them down more, have more consensus among the council and the mayor as to what to go after. I mean, I think you've got two kind of consensus things today, convention center and upgrading the marina for sure. The third consensus is lots of wonderful little things along the edge and the boardwalks. But a national conference that would start talking about that, I don't know. That's kind of what we're thinking, Ann and Dick. Your experience with national conferences, I mean, what do you think? Is it doable in that time frame, and would people from around the country come?
We've run at least 32 international conferences over the years, over 33 years. A conference is not, you want to have well, you've been to our conferences. Buzzy's been to our conferences. What is it now, September something? You need a lead time. A bit, you could do a smaller conference or a smaller meeting, but not, our conferences used to attract 300, 350 people. That's not a big conference, but it was I will admit, would you agree, it was a pretty good conference, and it brought people from all over. And we ran 3 or 4 tracks with speakers on various subjects, from economic development to public art to recreational boating. We ran, and we had it for a day and a half. But it does take organization, it takes a lot of work.
Second quarter of 19 is what you're talking about, sometimes in May of, say...
well, we'd have to talk about all that. That might be...
6 months lead time, at least.
You just can't,
right.
In September, whatever it is, say, well, I think we'll just have everybody come in November. I don't think so. It's because it's, and, I mean, our name, I don't mean to be immodest, but our name will draw people, because we did run a conference for over 32 years, and when we sort of scaled back because we were small. And we did team up with the Quad Cities in Iowa and Illinois and did a conference there, and then we did one in, you'll never guess this, Yuma, Arizona, and you're all going to say, well, why Yuma, Arizona? Because somebody was willing to do it, but where's the water? Colorado River. But people loved that conference. We didn't get a huge crowd, but we did get a crowd. But a place like this, it's not Yuma. So you could draw people, but you do need time, and you need the organization. You need to plan the program. Then you got to get the speakers. You got to and the logistics and the social events. Anybody that's run any kind of event knows that it's not a piece of cake.
But within a year from this date, certainly, maybe the June time frame, or even before then, it gives enough lead time to put together.
Okay, if there's no other comments, you want to do a round table? Mr. Gana, you have some?
I was just going to make a few observations
that
I had. And of course, I do like the convention center. The conventions, I do like the convention center idea. The convention center, of course, convention center brings jobs bring spillover helps our community. What you're talking about. One of the things we don't want to forget our millenniums. They are the future. They are what's there now. We have to have things to attract them. And of course, they're going to have kids. Most of them should have kids. And that will bring children activities, and that's the biggest thing. So I think you brought up children activities. One of the things that I would like to see is more rental around the peninsula, that we have more rentals, boat rentals. I don't see any. I'm looking at just the casinos by themselves. They're all placed up against the waterfront. All the way around. You can have boat rides from casino to casino. We don't have that. That's another option I wanted to throw out there. Walkability. I think I talked with Kono Jr. a couple of times about bringing some of the fraternities in, and we don't have the space. We don't have that convention space, and we don't have the rooms. And having that accessible walking area, going from place to place, is something that's vitally needed in our community. That will stimulate the area, that will stimulate the economy, and it brings, as I said, jobs. It also brings residents, it brings homes, and it stimulates communities. So right now, we're lacking in those areas right there. And of course, small business opportunities. And I think the young man over here was talking about the Main Street, Division Street area, bringing business opportunities, small business opportunities to our community. So those are some of the things that I observed, and I think it ties into everything that you were talking about. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
You're going to take a while, so I'll go first. I missed the meeting yesterday. I watched the live stream of it, and I saw some of the slides, but I couldn't see them very well. Can you make your presentation available to us on the PDF version? Or? Okay, so we have it already. I was also going to ask about some of the demographic and cost comparisons from those projects versus what we have here. Do you guys have any of that data available?
We're dealing with 40 years, and that's not in our portfolio. We don't do that kind of in-depth research. You can find some of that information in our books. You can find it on our database. We have an interactive database that covers 400 waterfronts. And I would recommend that if you want to know something, then you just either there's
Contact them directly.
Yeah, you can contact information there.
Would you repeat all that about? Because we're recording this. If you can answer Robert's question.
Hey, oh, I have to this thing. I really don't like that.
The middle one is large.
Oh, this one's working. Oh, okay, this is easier than that one. I don't like that one. His question was about our presentation yesterday, our visual presentation. That is in the mayor's computer. It's also in this computer. Many of those images were from our awards program, and they get copyright, so please don't put them in reports and stuff like that go out all over the place. They are copyright protected, many of the award winners. But you asked about whether we had economic profiles and all this and how much things cost. Some of that information.
Contact them directly to say.
Yeah. Now, in that book there, that's the one book I gave him, Waterfront City Reclaim Their Edge, that one, the bigger, fatter one. That's our first 5 years of award winners. And we did put square footage and some of that information in there. Yeah, there's, and this interactive database, which is found on www.waterfrontcenter1word.org, we've run an awards program for 32 years. Interdisciplinary jury judges the projects, and so we have about 401 to date. And most of those projects have been put on the web, and you can search it. It's an interactive search-based thing, and it has pictures and jury descriptions and contact information and all of that. It's an invaluable and very unique resource. I don't think anybody would find it anywhere. And there's a lot of stuff on our website. There's wonderful pictures of the award winners. Yeah, it's a great resource. So I would recommend that if you really want to find out about 5 projects, get somebody to call them up and say.
September 21st.
Oh yeah, I should mention, any of you want to take a trip to Washington, we are having our awards ceremony and mini conference in Washington, September 21st, and we have 9 winners this year. So each one will receive their award, and they will also make a 20-minute presentation about their projects. And it's a neat thing. So that's, y'all come, visit our website. You'll find information about how to come, how much it costs. It's not very expensive. So do come, we'll welcome you.
Anything else? Councilman? Mr. Lawrence?
The key thing is the waterfront. That's our front door. And Biloxi is the city where everybody comes to. They don't come down here and go to Gulfport, they come here and go to Biloxi. So we need to take advantage of that. We are the brand, we are the name, we are why people come down to the coast. 90% of people come here first. So we need to take advantage of it. We need the families. There's no doubt about that. If you want to do anything on the point, the first thing you have to do is upgrade the harbors. When we had to build Fifth Tournament last year, we had 3 92-foot Vikings. And he can tell you they're $30 million each. Those are the kind of boats going to come down there. Well, you got to upgrade your harbor. You got to have the Wi-Fi. You got to have the wide slips. You got to have the harbor dug out. Those are things you have to do immediately. And you can do that pretty quick. When you get to $4 million, I don't know, the governor's told us $20 million. He didn't give us anything yet. But anyway, that's where the key's at, is the harbors. Everything else you do is going to play off the water. There's all the cat boats and things like that. That was an old time thing. It was a great thing. Can you bring that back again? Nah, you don't know. The key to bring family down is like what Margaritaville does with the kids. You have to have something for kids. When you get the kids, you don't have to make money from the 25-year-olds and the 40-year-olds. That's who's going to bring the money to the city. That's who's going to bring the kids. But you have to have something. They come down there for the sunset, the beaches. They here. That's part of the natural beauty we have in the city. Those are the good things for us. The biggest problem is we don't seem to brand it nationwide. That's a major problem. You have to be prepared for that when they come. You have to have something for them to do. You want them to stay another day, that's just something else for them to do. That's the key. One day, the next day, but they have to have something to do. A lot of fishing, a lot of golfing. The people come down and play, put that together in a package. I've never seen that done before. I've never seen the tourism people do that. Put the whole thing together. The casinos, the golfing, the fishing, everything. You tie it all together as one brand. You know, you can't sit around like this. You got to put it all together. The key is bringing everybody here and having something for them to do. What I'm telling you is the water is our front door. That's the key to the city. You're talking about we're a peninsula. We don't have a lot of land mass. We're not very big. I mean, you got water everywhere. You know, they're talking about bulkheads and that. You can't stop Camille's. You can't stop Katrina's. You live with them. But you don't stop. You don't stop not building. I mean, we've been doing this forever. This town was built like that. And this town was, in the tourists was in business in the 1920s. They all come from Chicago. Half of them was monsters, but they did come down to spend the weekend, you know. And as far as the casinos, we had one of them. It didn't work. It's too hard to run it back and forth from the casinos. The guy tried that. I don't know if you remember what they call it with the duck. He tried it, just couldn't. It was easy to go walk to the casinos and ride that boat back and forth. Tough weather, choppy, those things like that. Those things are hard to do, you know. But the key we have is the beaches, the beauty, the sunset, natural stuff to sit here. So Deer Island controlled by the state. Nobody gonna do anything in Deer Island. That needs to be preserved. It will be. That is controlled by the state of Mississippi. Those things are already in place. Now, can you make something out there? They tried that before. But I can't take them all down. So that's kind of hard. This is that Barry Island sitting there. Don't have any way you can stop anything. So these things are natural things, but that's the beauty of this coast. And everybody complains about our dirty water. It's not dirty water, it's brown water. There's no depth. It doesn't cleanse itself like Florida. But our kids can walk out there 100 yards and don't drown. In Florida, you walk off the beach, there's something right there with the tide. That's the difference. They can play in the water. They can play in the sand. They can do that. You don't have that problem they have in others, like Florida and that. But that's the water ship island. Get in the boat right out there. But those are the things. The harbors is key right off the bat. You want to upgrade a thing? You upgrade the harbors. That's the first thing that needs to be done. That way you bring the boats in, all these transit boats go back and forth. They want a first class harbor. They have these 92-foot Vikings, they're telling me, they don't care what you charge you. That's not their problem. But they want fine service. They want everything in place when they pull up. And that's the key. And that's the kind of people that goes back and forth in front of the Biloxi all the time. They just don't stop. But you want to come. You want those people staying here. You know, nowhere else could you pull up in a harbor and walk in a casino. Nowhere. Nowhere. We have something so unique here, and we don't take advantage of our own thing we have, the best of. I mean, how many people, when we had to build Fifth Tournament a couple of years ago, had a guy from Houston. He come in one of the nice fine boats, a $9 million boat, sitting there talking to him. And he said, you know what I like about this city? He said, I get up my boat, I walk right in and play blackjack. Then I go back to my boat. He said, this is the greatest thing in the world. Now here's this guy from Houston telling me this, and yet we don't seem to tell anybody else. And the Biloxi tournament is huge, and the reason it's getting bigger, he can tell you, $2.3 million in prize money. They probably the top fourth, the fifth Biloxi tournament in the nation, and it could be bigger, but you got to upgrade everything. You got to upgrade the harbor to bring those bigger boats, and he keeps telling me, I will tell you, the boats getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The other day we had them 19 footers, we thought we was cool. They don't live like that nowadays. They got these $1 million boats, but they want services. So the key is provide the services, and the more you do that, the more these people come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor, you want to give us some closing remarks, and then we'll get out of here.
I appreciate it, and I hope everybody sees the value of the challenge we have, and, you know, it's a consensus, and as we, you know, there's some obvious things that, you know, Georgia, now we all understand what needs to be done, but, you know, we've got to be together to say, this makes sense. If I ask whatever sources, whether it's Go Mesa, Tidelands, or you know, creative tax districts or tax options, we need to say, hey, this is what it's for that brand, for that Biloxi, for that future that we will stay there, because I certainly believe we've got a better opportunity than anybody to make it a spot that will be here for the next 300-something years, like we've already been here 300 years. So I do appreciate everybody being here and at least, you know, hammering out a solution. That's what it takes. We had no preconceived ideas on what works. We want to know what works, and in your opinion, 20 years from now, it may not work. You know, everybody makes mistakes, but we know right now that we've seen it over and over, and you've seen evidence of what works around that little bit, that water, that H2O, you know, and it wins. Even if it was a 10-foot, you know, if you had a 10 foot over the water, you put a picnic bench on that thing, they would be hammering to try and eat dinner or eat lunch or picnic over that water. So we've got 50-something miles of that opportunity. So let's just together put our heads together and say, hey, this is our ask from whoever. Whether, again, a lot of money, just 20 million, you know, 6 zeros behind my number. So I'm excited about it, and I hope you feel that excitement that is here. And together we'll do it. So thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to our special guest. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Tisdale, second by Mr. Lawrence. All in favor? Those opposed? We stand adjourned.